We all have that owner in our league, right? They are always right. It does not matter what you say. It does not matter what stats you have. It doesn't matter what you do. They always have to be right. You always have to be wrong. And they can be a nightmare to deal with. Just like Joey here. All right, listen, Kyle, wait a second. Okay, here's the thing. Y'all just can't follow the sheep around, right? You have got to make your own decisions. But I'm going to tell you why those decisions are incorrect, okay? Now, you've got to listen to what I have to say. David Johnson, he's the man, okay? We are taking David Johnson anytime we can get our hands on him, okay? You have to remember not to follow the sheep. You have to understand that they're leading you astray, okay? It's all about this. No facts, no arguments, just my really loud words, okay? That is how you win fantasy football leagues. Anyway, as I was saying, one of the ways that you can win your fantasy football league is making excellent trades for you. And even if we've got other owners trying to tell us otherwise, we've got to combat that somehow. And I've got some tips and tricks for you to make some great trades so you win your fantasy football championship here in 2020. How's it going, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle back with another video to get you ready for the 2020 fantasy football season. And in one of the last videos that I did about mistakes that you can make to lose your league, I talked about trades just a little bit. And I got a lot of comments on that video about, Kyle, expand on this. Talk about trades a little bit more. Or I've had issues with trades in the past. Or can you fill us in on what you do for trades? So I said, you know what? Let's do it. Headliner Nation asks, we answer. So here is a video all about making trades in your fantasy football league. But before I jump into the information, do not forget, if you love the Fantasy Headliners and you want a little bit more of that sweet, sweet action that we provide over here, you can get more over at Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can get access to all of our exclusive content, including articles, podcasts, exclusive videos, a lot of good stuff over there, and it only goes up from there. $20, the MVP tier, will get you access to Chris Kennedy's DFS content for PGA, NBA, and of course, when we're back in action, the NFL. So here we go. Let's jump into it and talk about how we can make some trades that will win our league in 2020. All right, first and foremost, Headliner Nation, you got to do a little bit of work yourself. And one thing that you can do to make trades a lot easier are to find trade partners right away. That's right. You should start taking a look at trade partners right after the draft. Start reviewing the rosters that are around you. One of the very first things after your draft that you should do is take a look at what other teams did in their draft. Because whether it happens before the season or in the season, you're going to want to find out what rosters can help your weaknesses and what rosters can get help from your strengths. If one of your strengths is running back, maybe you just dominate drafting running backs and you find yourself with a James White type of guy that I really, really like. But you know what? You were really light at wide receiver and you need yourself a really good wide receiver too. Well, maybe you can trade that James White for a wide receiver too if you've already got maybe 3 running backs that you know that you're going to be counting on all year long. Okay? And it goes for other positions as well. If you're weak at tight end and you're stacked at wide receiver, go find that roster that needs help at wide receiver and they can maybe trade you a tight end. So, find those weaknesses and strengths that let you compare well with other owners in your league. And as always, keep an eye on injuries. We always, whether you're on Twitter, Facebook, you get messages to your phone from ESPN, Yahoo, doesn't matter. you get those messages that say, oh, so-and-so had an injury. One of the very first things that you should do as soon as you have time, run to your league's website, take a look at the rosters, and see who had that player. Because if you are the first person to react, you can get the other owner overreacting. That's right, because what could end up happening is that other owner is freaked out, right? Oh my gosh, I just lost so-and-so. My team is a mess now. I really need a player to replace him, okay? If you're the very first owner to go to them and say, hey, I know you just lost this player. I've got somebody that can help you out. Let's make a deal. You could find that other owner overreacting because they're still coming down from that high of losing that player. Okay, so you can use that to your advantage a little bit. So when you see those injuries happen, be looking at the rosters and see if you can make a deal right away, if possible. Now, this is another one that I preach very, very, very often to people, and it is let trades happen. Do not force them. Because far too often I see fantasy owners trying to make trades, just get them done as quickly as possible. Don't get bored with trade talks, okay? One of the great things about making trades are those conversations that you have to have. One thing I don't love doing is just sending over an offer to another owner. I don't love just getting offers from other owners. What I would prefer as a fantasy football owner is that I get a message, an email, whether you use GroupMe, whether your league has some sort of messaging system, whether you do text messages, whatever it may be, get a hold of that other owner and say, hey, I have a potential trade. What do you think of this? And have those trade talks. Don't be afraid if they last a while either, okay? Because if your gut says no, then say no. If you are in the middle of trade talks and you've almost got something nailed down and you're looking at this trade and you're like, I like it. If you're not satisfied with it, you don't have to make the deal. Sometimes some of the best deals you make are the ones you don't make. So if you are not 100% bought in on a trade and you're like, man, this really does help me out, don't make the deal. Say no to it and then go back to the other owner and say, hey, I'm just not feeling it. I would really like to try and maybe do this or switch it around a little bit, okay? Don't let other owners twist your arm, okay? As we talked about at the beginning, we all have those types of owners in our league that act like they're far superior to us, or they say things to us like, hey, I'm not going to make this deal if you don't make it within 10 minutes. Or if I don't get this, I'm not going to do it. Well, you know what? All right, we're not going to do it then. Don't let other owners twist your arm into making deals, because more than likely if they're doing that, it's because they're so excited about the deal they want to get it done right away before you say no. So that can sometimes clue you in. On the reverse side, your demeanor when making deals also is something that you want to consider. Because a lot of times, if I get those messages from other owners and they're like, hey Kyle, I've got an offer for you. What do you think about this? And I'm like, oh, that's a deal, baby. I've got to make that right away. Every once in a while, I'll be like, hey man, love the offer. Hold on just a second. Let me check out a couple of things. I just want to make sure that I'm doing the right deal here. I'll get back to you in about 15 minutes. What do you think? And then let them sweat just for a few minutes and then say, yep, you know what? I'm good with that. Let's go ahead and make that deal. Because then at that point, if you run to it right away and you're like, yeah, send it to me right away. Let's get it done. They're going to be like, oh, whoa, Kyle jumped on that way too quick. He really likes that deal. Maybe I'm giving up a little bit too much. So it does go both ways. Make sure that your demeanor in trades doesn't give away too much. Put that poker face on. Another thing that I always tell owners, make players available to everybody. Okay? Say it out loud with me. Because unless you absolutely win the trade, you don't have to accept right away. Don't be afraid to counter either, okay? When making players available to everyone, if someone sends you an offer, say they want to get Todd Gurley off your hands, or they want to get Saquon Barkley or Calvin Ridley or whoever it may be. They want to get somebody off of your hands. And the deal that they send you, you're like, yeah, that's not a bad deal. But there's always another owner out there that could be willing to offer you more. And if you don't tell people that, well, how are you ever going to know? How are you going to know that a better deal could potentially be out there for you? So when all of this happens, when this goes down, when trade offers go down and somebody comes to you about a player, again, don't be strong-armed like I just talked about in the last slide. Do not be strong-armed into making a deal by another owner. If another owner says to you, hey, you've got to make this deal right now or I'm not going to do it, or I only give you 20 minutes, or I'm only going to give you a half hour, screw them. Don't worry about it, okay? Take a look at the trade. If you're not absolutely winning it, if you're not set in stone, this trade makes my team better, then don't do it. Don't be afraid to counter. Send them back a counter offer and say, I just don't think I'm getting enough. This is something that I would like to have. Again, how are you going to know if you don't say, I need this? You never know if that owner is going to come off of it and maybe give you a little bit more. And again, say to that other owner, hey, I do like this deal and I'm willing to talk about trading this player. However, I want to see if there's anybody else in the league that is interested in it. So again, utilize your league message board or messaging system or text messages or emails or however you do it, and let your league know, hey, I'm thinking about moving this player. Is anybody interested? Because you could get some offers flying in that not only could be better for you, but could cause the other owner to drive up that price tag. So now that if you really want to make a deal with that owner, now you can get a better deal from them because you're getting offers from everybody else. So make sure you're utilizing that. All right, Headliner Nation, a little bit of a quiz for you here. What does ABL stand for? Always buy low. A lot of times fantasy owners want to jump on board the hottest name or the best performing player, and they pay a premium for it, which you probably should. So it's always a good idea to keep an eye on those underperforming players that fantasy owners are getting upset about or getting frustrated with, or they don't want them in their lineup anymore, or whatever it may be, okay? Always be looking at those players. Yes, we want to add the best players to our team every single time, okay? But that's a given. This video is about making league-winning trades, and one of the things that you can do to win your league are getting those guys at a discount that end up popping off in the second half of the season because you spent time looking at their second half schedule and their fantasy football playoff schedule and determining these were the guys that I really liked this year. One of the greatest things that I love about our draft guide, one of the sections that we spend a lot of time taking a look at, is the matchup meter, determining strength of schedule throughout the season. And two different areas that we add are the easiest stretch of the season, the hardest stretch of the season, and the best starts to the season, okay? So we take a look at the teams and say, these are the teams that you should be looking at in these weeks. For instance, not going to give away all of the good, but the easiest stretch of schedule based on our matchup meter, Atlanta's week 4 through 8 is really, really easy. But their weeks 13 through 17 could be much more difficult. On the other side of that, a team like Cincinnati, they have a really easy stretch of schedule from week 11 to 14. San Francisco is looking at a great stretch of season from week 14 to 17. So at the beginning of the year with a San Francisco, maybe you take a look at them and you see, man, some guys are underperforming there. They have a really easy second half of the season. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. Okay, same thing goes for potentially the New York Jets. They have an easy stretch of schedule in the back half of the season. Maybe if a guy, just like Le'Veon Bell, doesn't end up working out at the beginning of the season, you can go to that owner and say, hey, I know Bell's frustrating right now. I'd like to make an offer for him. Here's what I can give you, and see if you can buy low on that player. Take a look at those guys. Second half of the season, fantasy football schedule, but always check it as well. A lot of these things that we're doing with our matchup meter and the draft guide are based off of the offseason and some things from last season as well. When the season gets rolling and we get 4, 5, 6 weeks in, we really find out more about teams and what they are and what they truly look like. So sometimes you got to reevaluate at that point and say, this is a team I didn't think was going to play that well. They're dominating right now. That changes that back half of the season schedule. I got to look at that and see how that affects players I'm targeting. Okay, so keep that in mind. Moving on, no player should ever be off limits on your roster. do not be afraid to sell high on players. And do not ever let a name keep you from making a deal. You've got Saquon Barkley. You love Saquon Barkley. If someone comes to you with a really good deal, do not say no to them right away just because it's Saquon Barkley and because he's dominating, because you never know what you could get. Now, if they come at you with a bad offer and you're like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah, that's one thing. Say no to that. But shoot back an offer and say, if I'm going to move Barkley, this is what I would need, and tell them exactly what it is you would need. Okay? However, here is your warning. Never trade $1 for 75 cents. Okay? So often do I see fantasy owners say, well, should I make this deal for these 3 players because the depth on my team is awful and I really need some more depth, or I need to strengthen these couple of positions? For the love of God, do not trade a player like Saquon Barkley for maybe 2 running backs and a wide receiver that are RB2s and maybe a wide receiver 3 at best just because you need depth. Don't do that, okay? We're never going to say no to an offer just because of the name and the player. But we're never going to say yes to an offer and give up our studs, our premium players, okay, for a bunch of change. Don't do it. That mistake will absolutely bury fantasy owners every single season. And if you're watching this video, I can guarantee you have probably made that mistake as well. Heck, I've made that mistake. I've done that as well in the past. And it has kicked me in the butt every single time. Okay? If you've got your studs, you've got to get a premium price for them. Even though we want to buy guys that are underperforming or we're buying low on other guys, okay, don't let it happen to us. Okay, so if Barkley starts off with like 2 bad weeks, don't go selling him just because you're freaked out, okay? Don't do that. It goes both ways, all right? So you got to make sure that you are paying attention to all that information. Well, Headliner Nation, hopefully this video helped you out. Some tips and tricks, some things that I do to strategize every single season. One thing that I really gotten a lot of positive feedback in the past from people I played in leagues with is that my trading strategy is one of the things that makes me such a good fantasy football owner, because I do a lot of these things. So I'm talking from experience. I do all of these things myself. So hopefully you got something good out of it. Don't forget, if you appreciate the content, like the video, hit the like button down below. Leave a comment as well. Is there anything that you've done in the past where you've screwed up? Do you have tips that maybe you've learned from that you want to share with fantasy owners? Let us know down in the comments below. And as always, if you're new to the Fantasy Headliners, hit that subscribe button. Become a part of Headliner Nation today. Hopefully all of you are doing well out there. Headliner Nation, stay safe, stay healthy. I love you all. Have a great week, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.